When you get a brand new grill, the first thing that you're going to want to do is not invite any friends over before you've had a chance to use it. Of course, it's a new toy and you want to show it off to all of your friends, but it'd be a whole lot better if you could get the hang of it, and that way you impress them with the food and the grill. Once the grill is unpacked and assembled, most manufacturers will tell you that you need to do a burn-in before you cook any food on it, and that helps to burn off any of the shipping grease that they might have put on there to keep rust from forming. And that burn-in is a really good opportunity to get to know your grill because it gives you a chance to adjust the vents, see how it cooks, how it regulates the temperature in different situations. I also like to take a little bit of oil and rub it down on the grates or give it a quick spray, so that way you start to get that seasoning forming. If you skip that step, the first food that you put on there is gonna stick. And this burn-in and seasoning process is really helpful because it allows you to have that test and experience before you ever risk messing up dinner. And once you start cooking for real on your first, second, maybe even third or fourth cooks, you're gonna wanna cook something that you've cooked a bunch of times on a different grill and you've already mastered. I like to grill hamburgers because, well, they're awesome. And I also like to do chicken thighs because they're really hard to mess up. Even if you get it too hot or it takes longer than you expect, they still turn out pretty good. And that gives you a nice soft landing as you're still learning with your grill. And when it comes to a charcoal grill, the best model is to do indirect cooking. And that's where you pile up all of the charcoal on one side of the grill, that's the hot side. You put no charcoal on the other side, that's the cool side. So even if you mess up and things get too hot, you can always take the food off, slide it over to the cooler side, and you don't have to worry about burning your food. You can just bake and roast over on that side instead. And that's what I did with these pork chops, and they came out really, really good. And that indirect cooking model is actually good advice, even if you know your cooker really well, because sometimes you're still gonna make mistakes. When I first got this grill, it took me a few cooks to figure out how many coals I needed to light to get to different temperatures, even with the fan controller that was on it. Sometimes I would undershoot it, and it would take longer than I wanted to get dinner ready. And that's because it has a little bit more airspace inside of it than your standard Weber kettle. So then after a few cooks, I started making fewer of those mistakes and getting a lot closer to the target temperature as fast as I needed to. And I have to go through this process with every single grill that I use because every one of them is just a little bit different. But after a few cooks, you start to dial it in and it goes a lot easier. And after those first few successful cooks, you'll build up your confidence to bring people over because you know that you're not gonna mess up dinner and they're gonna be able to enjoy it too. Or you could go on to something a little bit more adventurous, and for me, that is pizza. That's the culmination of grill control in every aspect, is whether or not I can manage to grill a pizza and not burn it on a new grill. And even though I've done it on a bunch of different grills, it can still be pretty tough to nail it because it requires a little bit of finesse and technique. So here is how I set it up on the Huntsman. First, I used indirect cooking and put all of the coals on the right side of the grill, and then over on the left side, I added a pizza stone. Anybody who's ever cooked pizza on a charcoal grill knows that one of the risks is that you're going to get too much radiant heat, which will heat up the stone or whatever you're cooking it on, and it'll burn the bottom crust when the toppings aren't quite done. So to fix that, I added a half rack and then put a cast iron pizza pan on top of it. And that air gap in between the stone and the pizza pan is going to keep that radiant heat from burning the bottom of the pizza. And even after all that testing, I didn't cook the pizza perfectly because it was my first high temperature cook in the Huntsman, and I didn't add enough charcoal in order to be able to get to the highest temperatures that I was wanting. I wanted something closer to 600 degrees, and I landed around 500, which is still pretty good for pizza, and it turns out great. The toppings were nice and bubbly, and the crust was a good golden brown, but I know nobody would believe that unless they could actually see it. So I pulled it off, and you look at the bottom, yep, the edge on just that one side was a little bit extra crispy, a la Neapolitan style, maybe just a little bit over, but the rest of it was all a nice golden brown. So with that confidence, next time I can raise the temperature a little bit higher by putting a little bit more charcoal in and know that I probably won't burn it. And if you're not going to get the temperature exactly perfect, it's better to err on the side of a little bit too cool because you can cook it a little longer and still get good results. But if you cook it too hot, it's really hard to bring things back once they're burnt.